Welcome everyone. Hi Shay, hi Nikki, hi everyone. I know we're gonna get started here as soon as our music shifts. Oh, good morning. Welcome everyone. My name is Elizabeth Dreiser, and as your MC for today's program, I'd like to welcome you to this important and exciting event, Web3, Breaking It Down. We're delighted to be joined by participants from all over the world. And to start, we encourage you to use the chat to introduce yourself, put your name, where you're coming from, any organizational information, your contact information, and if you have a massive transformative purpose, an MTP, as we like to say for short, we encourage you to put it in the chat so that we can help lift that up and that you can connect with others. We aim to support connections here as well as learning. Briefly, by way of background, I'm an entrepreneur and investor focused on data and marketplace businesses. I'm also involved in community projects, foundations, activism, along with some story and film projects. And I was introduced to the Singularity University community through their exponential medicine track over a decade ago. And I continue to be moved by the abundant progress and optimism of the diverse and global Singularity University and SU community. Okay, and a little over, Shay, if we can go to the next slide, a little over 3 years ago, and inspired by the potential of exponential technologies to improve human lives and the exponential mindset, the fabulous brother and sister duo, Ben and Shay Badii. Ben and Shay, please wave. They started our local SU chapter, and shortly thereafter, I was pleased to join the leadership team with them, and also want to just give a warm welcome to our other leadership members, Amber, Nikki, and David. Please also wave. And next slide, as many know, our Singularity University chapter's mission is to support those daring greatly to usher in a better world. And we're part of a global digital community and content platform with 58 chapters in 35 countries and over 35,000 members. Our community sees technology as a powerful tool in improving human lives. And through community and content and events like this, we inspire, educate, and connect members to better understand the potential of these technologies to positively impact all aspects of society. Members access digital learning experiences, expert and practitioner insights, future-focused narratives, and a diverse global network of individuals, companies, and governments who share a desire to create a better world. And if you're inspired to join us, a link is being posted in the chat, which you'll see. That'll give you an opportunity to join in. And next, I'd like to also introduce the San Diego chapter has adopted an impact initiative to collaborate with and support youth developers and organizations working to address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short. Nikki from our leadership team is leading that effort, and she's posting her direct email into the chat too for those that would like to get involved. Nikki will be adding that shortly. So some final housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, will be shared with participants and others who couldn't be with us live. We encourage audience participation. Please add questions to the chat. We'll be endeavoring to reply to these during the program and of course during the Q&A. We also invite you to add pertinent, helpful resources to the chat. And be sure to introduce yourself again for those that are just coming on, add your information, who you are, where you're coming from, your organization, contact information, whether it's LinkedIn or a link or an email, and if you have an MTP, a massive transformational or transformative purpose, please feel free to share that. Also want to let you know that at the end of the program, there's going to be a special wallet gift. More will be revealed during the program, and we'll share a feedback and connect form in the chat during the program. We aim for 100% participation so we can continue to enhance our programs. And to connect with our chapter, our panelists, or me, simply fill out the form when that's posted, and the SU chapter leadership will facilitate the connections. Okay, it is now my pleasure to introduce our special guest, Ahmed. He's also a fellow SU colleague from Egypt. This event was actually inspired in part by him. He's also a global startup mentor at Singularity. Ahmed is also the founder and CEO of Vanilla Social Media. And Ahmed is a chapter leader and active member and group coach at Hive Global Community for leaders and entrepreneurs. He's been a speaker at many events, including Startup Path in Romania, Hive Global Community of Entrepreneurs in India, Nexus Global Community of Philanthropists, Impact Investors, and Social Entrepreneurs, to name a few. Ahmed, please wave so folks can see who you are, and we're delighted to have you with us today. Thank you for agreeing to participate in our program and in the Q&A. And without further delay, it is my pleasure to also introduce you to our moderator, Amber Bradner, who is also one of our chapter team leaders. Amber is an advocate and co-creator of the new economy. She creates space for inclusive culture to develop and collaborate, innovations and collaborative innovations to emerge. Amber accepted a fellowship as entrepreneur in residence at UCSD, University of California, San Diego, having leadership experience with TEDx, World Economic Forum, Global Shapers, and Singularity University. Amber understands the import of local action in the global narrative. As a consultant and mentor, she has helped countless founders find and tell their stories, connect to their why, build community, and take the next step on the path of creation. As a near entrepreneur in residence as well, Amber is developing programs with educational grants, leading a transparency report team, collaborating with leaders for ecosystem development, and co-hosting Near Space. Okay, Amber, over to you. The mic is yours.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth, and thanks everybody for joining us today. Really excited to have this exceptional group of humans. In the order that you see, I just want to give everybody a brief on who our panelists are. So Daniel Haboush, thank you for joining us. Daniel is an entrepreneur in residence as well with Near. He is also co-host in Near Space with myself, supporting builders and creators that navigate the Near ecosystem. He's also leading the Near growth and transparency team, and he's passionate about Web3, Metaverse, NFTs, all things that are relevant to this conversation. So excited to have you with us, Daniel. Ali is a Web3 impact entrepreneur exploring and supporting Web3 and Impact Dow ecosystem to increase our collective ability to regenerate the earth. Ali supports founders solving the world's problems as a venture fellow at 50 years and leads a growth impact driven project through 2+ and Gitcoin Dow. She's also a co-author in the book on Impact Dows. Rachel is joining us from Harmony. Rachel is Harmony Dow Operations, Ambassador Dow, and Sustainable Development Dow. She loves Dows, founder of Elixir of Life. Then we have Aliza, who is joining us, and she's actually representing our Impact project. She is a 16-year-old with a passion about making a difference in the Web3 space. She's currently working in blockchain research, development, particularly utilizing blockchain tech for social impact. She taught herself Solidity, and then she's worked on projects such as tracing blood wastage storage and blood donation supply chain. She's involved in DeFi apps, creating her own cryptocurrency and more. Aside from technical skills, she's also passionate about climate and most recently working with mitigating air pollution and increasing the quality of life for farmers in India. She also loves learning about the implementing of new mindsets to 10x her personal growth and is thrilled to have been joining us. So we're so excited to have you, Aliza. And as I mentioned, Aliza is representing Island 17, which is part of the Dream Tank initiative that we are working on with Singularity Group. And then last but not least, we have Gary Shang that's joining us. He's a co-founder in Civics Unplugged, Dream Dow. He was featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. He's involved in Gitcoin Dow, Friends with Benefits, and is part of the solar punk future. He's also an amazing connector and maestro alchemist that is bringing, I would say, purpose-driven creators together. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Ahmed, for joining us as well, and he'll be popping in our Q&A to help answer questions. So to kick things off, is everybody on here visible? And are we missing anybody? I just want to assess. Okay, so to start, I'd like to actually go straight to a level set because we're all coming in from different knowledge areas. So we're basically working with a new dictionary and want to establish a common language. I think, Daniel, if you could kick us off with your understanding of what is Web3 and what are these NFTs, DAOs, what's the language that we're using today? If you could give us a quick and dirty on that, we appreciate that.
Sure, it's my pleasure. So Web3 is like an amalgamation of building blocks. So let's talk about the building blocks. The first building block is really the protocol layer. That is the new version of what is HTTP and TCP, right? It's the technology layer on top of which all these next layers are going to be built. Now, the next layer is kind of like the financial layer. It's the transactional layer. It's what we call DeFi or decentralized finance. It's pretty much bringing traditional banking service on top of a blockchain. Now, because we have a blockchain and because you don't need these intermediaries, it allows for a lot of innovation. So it's not just traditional banking services, but you can think of it as the banking layer of the blockchain. Now, the fact that we have a banking layer or the DeFi layer, it actually allows for a lot of interest. It's almost a necessity for everything else to grow on top of it. So what else is growing on top of this DeFi layer? One of the things is NFTs. So what are NFTs? NFTs are really a token that represent ownership. This ownership can be something physical or it could be something digital. When you think of something physical, you could think of the deed to your house. Now, the legal rails for, let's say, recognizing a contract that represents the deed to your house on a blockchain, they may not be in place right now, but they will be in place eventually. And so what that will allow, it will allow for the provenance of things and the liquidity or the velocity of things to move much quicker than what we're used to. And it's going to create a whole bunch of interesting markets and new innovations that will break and that will get fixed and iterated upon, like what we're seeing with UST right now in Terra. And if we look at the ownership layer, the ownership aspect of digital items, that's really where there's a unique innovation happening too. Because before this, we could never really prove ownership of a digital item. So all of a sudden, I could have an item that doesn't have a physical counterpart, but nevertheless I own and can be valued if somebody else wants it. So you can start thinking about items in games and items that bring benefits in communities and stuff like that, that we could say, oh, look, I own this and somebody else wants this. Because I have the DeFi layer underneath, I'm actually able to trade and transact these things. Now, when I think of the metaverse, I think of the new UX and UI interface through which we're going to be experiencing and utilizing all of these services. The metaverse itself, kind of like this whole industry, is quite nascent, right? It's not developed. It's not like we're going to go in there right now and spend all of our time, but more and more, the younger generations are growing up digitally familiar and enabled. They're used to spending more and more time and socializing in a digital environment. So the metaverse is taking that environment from some sort of 2D experience into a more immersive experience. And when I think of Web3, it's really just the amalgamation of all these things. So it's the DeFi with the NFTs, with the metaverse, and how these are all interacting together. Overall, the fact that we have a new layer called the blockchain, what it really is providing is it's a layer of trust that removes intermediaries. Those intermediaries are almost like friction points. And when those friction points get removed, a lot of new and creative and interesting things can happen. So I hope that answers the question. and I'm happy to elaborate. Oh, DAOs. Sorry, forgot about DAOs. I had a feeling I forgot something. So
Don't forget
DAOs
about
are
DAOs.
yeah, right. What the DAO? So DAOs are a new type of business structure built on top of the blockchain. They're really meant to help coordinate and collaborate people that share a mission or a purpose. Right now, they're quite nascent as well. We all know that getting people together to decide on something and work together on something can be quite challenging. And so it's not that DAOs are able to do everything better right now in a business structure. It's just that the potential that they offer to the world is the ability or the ability to facilitate coordinating thousands of people towards one shared purpose and being able to hold accountable and transparent all the decisions that that DAO makes. It really is an interesting, empowering tool that we're only just beginning to explore.
If I'm able to comment on that, Daniel, I really love what you're sharing about DAOs. I just want to mention, I do have a limited amount of time here today, you guys. I'm meeting with the Harmony team in Napa Valley at our offsite, but I did want to mention a couple of things about DAOs. And if it's okay that I share my screen, I did a bit of an analysis on what makes a DAO successful that I'd like to share with you all today, if that's okay.
Sure, we can adjust to that. Go for it, Rachel.
Okay. It says host needs to enable.
I'm impressed that you're doing this from your car, Rachel.
Oh yeah, so we're actually right now, a little context about why I'm in my car. So we're in Napa Valley. The Harmony team is coming together and, working on how we can restructure our DAO ecosystem and just fix a lot of things, to ensure longevity of our chain. So we're all out here. I actually stepped away from a meeting to join this, so I do have limited time. But I wanted to share with you guys today just some of my findings on some DAO related things, because the CEO of Harmony asked me to put together this analysis. So from my findings, I reviewed the top DAOs on Near and Ethereum. What I found is the common denominators linking all of these are community-driven, decentralized projects, so community first. Most of these have implemented DAO tokens, right? And some have elements of DeFi, and almost all of them have fundraising aspects to their success. So yeah, the value of the DAO, right, is our first priority, and the community sentiment will follow if it's something that provides a utility. So I went here and I covered some of the top DAOs on Ethereum and on Near. So we have all of them are community first. Most of them have a token. They're all providing some sort of utility, right? Most of them have aspects of fundraising, and then they're developing something. There's developers on these teams that are building some sort of tool that provides a utility to the chain. And then I just go into, Uniswap, Unitoken, Aragon, MakerDAO, Juicebox DAO. And then I'm actually excited to see that some of you from Near are on this call, because I was taking a look at some of the guilds, and I thought these were some interesting concepts. Just looking at the marketing guild, hackathon guild, and the data center, what these all have in common is that they're providing some sort of utility to the chain. And I found that really interesting to find about DAOs. And I actually learned quite a bit about DAO tokens too, and tokenomics. So here's a complete list of DAO tokens. We have Uniswap, Maker, BitDAO, Aragon, Aave. These are just some examples of different DAOs and the tokens they've launched. So I think that tokenomics is a very significant aspect of a successful DAO. And I'm working on a couple different DAOs myself. In Harmony, I've done work on the Ambassador DAO, scaling events internationally for Harmony, and as Amber mentioned, the Sustainable Development DAO too. And we plan on implementing a carbon credit system through our tokenomics. So that's something that we're working on as well. And, as I'm getting more and more in depth in the DAO sphere of Harmony, I'm realizing the importance of tokenomics. And I really did a deep dive on guilds and Near, and I think they're really fascinating. And if you guys see here, Near actually has on their website the difference between a DAO and a company. So this is the last thing I'll cover here. So a DAO should be, in theory, quick to set up. Company is costly to start. A DAO, in theory, is global and borderless, and a company is tied to local jurisdictions. In a DAO, the team has the ability to build their own structure, when a company is a hierarchical organization. So I've publicly spoken about DAOs before, and one of the reasons that I'm bullish on DAOs is because it gets us away from that traditional CEO structure, right? Where everyone at the bottom is working and the CEO is just getting more rich. A DAO offers us an opportunity to have more equal distribution of wealth. It's more fair to the people that are doing the hard work. And then lastly, a DAO should be open and transparent when a company is private and opaque. That's one of the other things I love about DAOs in the Web3 space is that there's transparency, we're open, and I'm actually working on implementing DAO reporting for some of the DAOs on Harmony. That way, for the community, we can just transparently track the success of DAOs over a long period of time, ensure self-sustainability, accountability, deliverables, and best practices. So
Awesome,
yeah,
Rachel.
that's all I have to share today, you guys. Also, really love you guys at Near, how you went carbon neutral. So kudos. Yeah, we're working on that at Harmony as well. So yeah,
Thank you so
thank you
much,
guys so
Rachel.
much for having me today. I apologize that I got to cut it short, but I do have to run back into this meeting.
No
Thank you
worries.
all for having me. And I'll actually drop my Twitter link in the chat before I run, if any of you want to connect. And thank you so much for joining today.
Awesome, thank
Hey,
you. And
Rachel.
we'll work on getting those resources as well. So maybe we can share that document in our recap that we send out with everybody. Thank you so much for that,
Sure.
Rachel.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share the Notion page I created as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very
Awesome.
much.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, sorry that it didn't work for you to stay the whole time, but we're happy that you could join us and share what you have.
It's okay. We're doing important
okay.
work over here. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on, I just wanted to go into, we kind of have gone into the high level of the language. Now we've gone a little bit further into DAOs. Let's talk about why Web3 matters and what is possible that wasn't possible before. I'd love to hear from Aliza, if you could join in, and Gary, I'd love to hear your voices in this. So maybe we can hear from Aliza first, and then Gary, I know that you have thoughts on this matter. So please go ahead and unmute and share. Again, the question is, why does Web3 matter? What is possible that wasn't possible before?
Yes, for sure. So in terms of why Web3 matters, for me, at least I can talk about why it matters to me. So Web3, I think it's definitely like a tangible thing, but I also feel like it's just a community. I feel like everybody in Web3 is trying to do something to accelerate something within their own niche. And you can do so many different things within so many different niches. And I think Web3 is like this community that welcomes these different areas. And I think that's what I like about Web3. That's why I think it matters, because it's not only just a new form of the internet. I also feel like it's just something that allows people to kind of take that unconventional path and go into a new thing. So that's kind of why it matters to me. Yeah.
And Gary, same question to you. What is the potential here? What wasn't possible before? Why does Web3 matter to all of us?
So great question. It's great to be here. Can you hear me? Cool. I'm like kind of siphoning Wi-Fi from this venue at ReFi Summit, Regenerative Finance Summit in Seattle, first of its kind, I guess. Why I care about Web3 is why I care about anything. I think that we are experiencing a meta crisis in the world right now, where we have a climate crisis kind of working together with a mental health crisis, a democracy crisis, a financial system crisis, a ecological crisis of like rainforests dying, land like soil depleting in terms of its richness, our food quality getting worse. All this is connected, and I'm not a Web3 maxi. I'm not like, or at least whatever people think that Web3 is, I'm not like just inherently a huge fan of Web3. What I want to do is figure out how to reverse engineer from a much better future. where we overcome this meta crisis, where each crisis is making other crises worse, and where humanity is on clearly a downward spiral, right? Like I've been saying this, I mean, many of you have been saying this for decades, and I'm like new to this. I just happen to like know how to use social media, like I guess, but like, to me, whatever Web3 is, if it doesn't become something that is reversing the meta crisis, it's a waste of time. Like, yeah, and just to get practical, I think regenerative finance, which is roughly a already diverse ecosystem of different people figuring out how do we make it such that in the future, like the wealthiest people are the people that most contributed to planetary regeneration and human flourishing. That's what regenerative finance is to me. That's what it should be. And tons of resources and talent needs to be poured into the space. Just this question, how do we incentivize good things to happen? How do we incentivize reversing the meta crisis? So regenerative finance to me is huge. Another thing that just like really exciting to me is the possibility of DAOs and then ecosystems of DAOs that are aligned, work together, basically clusters of humans doing stuff together, collective action. I think most, if not all, the most effective movements in the world in the next decade are going to be leveraging Web3 technologies, whether it's NFTs, DAO tooling, which in the DAO space, there's like a renaissance of coordination, like research and tooling, and just like philosophy overall. So regenerative finance space and the DAO space are like sort of subspaces within Web3, which I just think they have kind of infinite potential, or like it needs to feel, we really need to just pour as much resources as needed, so that we are able to have, we're able to have a flourishing future by 2030, right? All right. So anyways, that's me.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I wanted to point to the DAOs. One of the things that is really interesting is it's a great entry point, right? It's the least technical, and it is also kind of creating the base for all decision making and connection there. So alignment around our shared purposes, alignment around this bigger, movement, because when we don't have that, we're just using technical tools and doing the same stuff. So I really love those points. We have very limited time, so I would like to get into this last question, hold space for a Q&A, because I think we have some great people on this call and I'd love to hear their specific questions. So the next question is really around, like, how are these tools and technologies being put to use in your world or in your work? So Elisa, like, how have you applied some of these technical tools, maybe in specifically to the Impact project that you're working on? Daniel, I'd love to hear how you're seeing this within NEAR and then even outside of NEAR. And then Gary, if you could speak to as well, I know within civics and some of even film production, you're starting to put some of these tools to work. So if y'all could popcorn around, maybe we'll start with Elisa on this one again, then Daniel and Gary. That would be wonderful. Love to hear from you.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm here because obviously I'm representing Island 17 DAO. And I think one of the best ways that we use these new tools is this kind of play to earn or learn to earn framework. And essentially what we're doing is being able to accelerate solving the global sustainable development goals. But what we find is a great way to do that is through gamification and being able to give people this like platform to, motivate them to take the path into trying to make an impact. And we can do that by incentivizing them through this kind of play to earn or learn to earn framework. And that's kind of what we're doing by first, like, let's say like you want to go into helping out climate change, then what you can do is you can first learn about it and get incentivized through that learn to earn framework. And by kind of doing that, you will have that motivation to kind of want to make an impact. And I feel like that's a really interesting tool that we're working on.
Thanks so much, Elisa. Daniel, do you want to take that same question? I'd love to hear from your point of view.
Sure. I want to preface this with most people in this space aren't in the space for where it's at now, but for where we think it can go, right? So the product development cycle of this technology is such that it's quite nascent, and we see a lot of potential, and that potential is being explored. But a lot of the use cases and applications that we do foresee aren't yet in place. But the first iterations of them are coming out, and it really is fascinating. One of my favorite use cases for what a blockchain enables is new social economic incentive structures. So why am I in this space? It's because, as Daniel Schmachtenberger likes to put it, is how do we become stewards of all this exponential technology that's coming out in a way that doesn't destroy ourselves? And one of the ways that we do that is by creating incentive structures around them that incentivize the kind of behavior that we want. So I really perceive the world as it got to where it is because of the incentive structures that motivated human behavior to get there. And never before did we have this sort of opportunity to redefine what is value and what is money and create new incentive structures that tie back into each other, that maybe make doing something for somebody else actually a net positive gain for you. Imagine you can give to charity and you get more back in return. These sort of things are being iterated on within blockchain, and I love it. And it's very early days. It's all being explored. It falls into the realm of game theory, human behavior psychology, and tokenomics. And it's fascinating. I really love it. And we're at very early stages. There's a lot more I could talk about, but that's enough.
Thank you so much. I think one of the projects at Near that's gotten a lot of interest lately is Sweatcoin. I think they had 4 million new wallets open from that, and it's specifically incentivizing movement. So people sign up for this token. Go ahead, and you want to just give us a quick snapshot on that? I think it's a great project to just spotlight.
So this whole like incentivization using tokens, right? You have play to earn, you have learn to earn. What Sweatcoin is doing is move to earn. The learn to earn is by learning something, I get this token in return. If this token has utility, it also has value. With the Sweatcoin, what they're doing is by capturing the amount of steps that I take a day, the more steps that I take, the more tokens I earn. Now, it's then up to the application to provide utility for this token. And so they're partnering and collaborating with brands across the world to be like, okay, well, you can use this token to get a discount on the brands that you like. And so this is one way of actually incentivizing healthy behavior and getting rewarded in return. And that is kind of one of the really cool things that's enabled by blockchain technology.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And then Gary, would love to hear from you. I know that you have several projects that you're involved in. So would love to hear how this technology is being integrated. What do you see as possible, and what are you most excited about in
that? So one kind of theory I have is like, I don't know the timeline on this, but the future is inevitable that there's a race to the top. You know, there's a lot of race to the bottoms of like corporations, you know, almost competing on which slave labor they use to lower their costs of their consumer goods. But then there's also races to the top that we can trigger if we model good behavior. So for example, there's this concept of the Impact Dow, where basically it's a nonprofit that's just like using Web3 to make sure that it's more transparent and accountable, and all the funds, or most of the funds that are being directed to program activities of a nonprofit are on chain, right? So they're easy to account for. So Dream DAO, which is the DAO that my nonprofit Civics Unplugged launched, is all about empowering Gen Z to learn how to use Web3 to do good in the world. And all of our transaction history is on chain, on the Ethereum blockchain. And that it's not to say that we were going to do anything shady with that, with the money if that wasn't on chain, but there's this like cool phrase that I think it helps make DAOs make a lot more sense to people, or like the practical value is can't be evil is greater than don't be evil. And what that means is you should not have to hope that a leader is going to be ethical. You should just not donate to nonprofits that are not transparent by default. And so there's like basic things that just don't make sense about how the world works. Like there's a ton, of course, and I'm sure we can all name them. One of them is that a lot of philanthropy is just fraud. It doesn't make any sense. It's just passing money to rich people's kids or their spouses or something like that. And you know, I would say any sensible donor 10 years from now, or maybe sooner, should be able to only donate to causes where they know exactly where their money is going. So that, I think we talk a lot. Yeah. So that's one use case, which I'm really excited about, Impact Dows.
Thank you. Yeah, Francis was just asking, do you have relevance with the film production? Maybe you can just give us a quick, because I know that's another project you're working on with the Web3 doc. And this actually leads me to, I want to prep this with just this question, and I think Gary, you can speak to this in relation to this documentary, but what doesn't make sense to leave behind? So a lot of times we take this leap from, let's call it Web 2 to Web 3. In the space of NEAR, we're noticing the need for still some like core entrepreneurial education, right? There are still structural things that make sense. And as you fundraise, as you look at all these different things, what's not working that you kind of could imagine, oh, Web3, this could be the solution, but maybe there's still a better solution that exists that was pre-established. What are the barriers for adoption? So I'll leave that, Gary, maybe you can piggyback on that, and then we can go around as a last question to the panelists.
Should I quickly touch on the film thing as first?
Yeah, and I was just thinking that you're talking about fundraising with that actually, and sort of that was the frame I was looking at.
So I think film, I don't know when this will become like super normal, but I think like the future of film production is going to be a lot more crowdfunded in the future. And I think like just like a lot of projects. So, and then just also briefly touch on like what I'm trying to create is a documentary on the regenerative potential of Web3, which I think like, you know, the Terra ecosystem is a complete, you know, mess right now. And I'm not an expert on exactly why, but like people like Elizabeth Warren are having the best day of their lives right now because they wanted to, you know, regulate Web3 to death. And so they pick on every single case of a bad, you know, something really bad happening. So what do we have to do? We have to highlight what is simply not possible without Web3. It's not like what's nice to have, it's slightly better, 10% better. 10% better doesn't inspire anyone, right? So, and I'm not saying that I know exactly what those use cases that are 10 times better or simply 0 to 1 that Web3 enables. I think we're still figuring that out. Like people, you know, sent me like this project in the Amazon rainforest about like regenerating the rainforest, and maybe Web3 is being used to do that. But I'm still scouting these projects that deserve their stories to be told in a really high budget way. Just to answer the other question that Amber brought up of what should not be ported over, I would say like, you know, Dream DAO is one of the first Impact DAOs, but I don't think that it's responsible to start an Impact DAO if you're not like a web, like super tech savvy, because more things will go wrong than right now. And I think right now I'm really optimistic about Web3, not because of like the existing reality I think is really clunky. Gas fees are really high for like Ethereum, for example, and there's a lot of other issues. But I'm really excited about the next 5 years, next 10 years, and the people that are really ahead of the curve, or just they tend to be early tech adopters, have to deal with the clunkiness so that someone that's not a tech savvy expert but really cares about a cause can adopt like Dow, Impact Dow technology really seamlessly. And that's going to be a while, I think. And then just more broadly, I think when we're thinking about new technology, again, like if what you're offering might be just like 10%, 20% better, it's going to be very hard for people to switch over to what you're doing. So I always kind of like to point at like, how did Notion get so much adoption? Because for a lot of use cases, Notion, which is like this, they're a little bit different, but like there's sort of like Google Docs competitor. Notion to me had to be 10 times better in certain use cases than Google Docs to get a flood of adoption. So that's something really important to keep in mind for people that want to build in Web3, that they should be picking use cases where it's more or less a 0 to 1, where it was simply not possible with the technology, and the 1 is something that ordinary people get a lot of benefit from.
Thanks so much, Gary. That's great. Daniel, similar question of just what are the challenges for Web3 being adopted, and where can you give us a snapshot of kind of where you see us right now in the adoption, in the evolution of Web3? As Gary mentioned, it's not a solve for everything, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
So the concept I feel like mentioning is called anti-fragile. So one of the benefits that Web3 has is it's a system that is anti-fragile. What that means is that when something happens that disrupts the homeostasis of the ecosystem, it actually learns from it and gets stronger. And we're really still in that phase where a lot of stuff can go wrong with these ecosystems. And when they do, these ecosystems learn from it and get stronger. Now imagine this ecosystem was populated with 10,000 people. Well, 10,000 people would be exposed to that risk. And that's okay, they're willing to take that risk, and they also get the upside potential of that risk. But if there was 1 billion people on blockchain right now, and we're still messing around with algorithmic stablecoins, we don't have to get into what that is, but it causes a token to go down 95% in a few days, and it involves hundreds of millions of people, they would be freaking out. So I think part of it is just the development cycle of the technology is such that there's still lots of risk. And it's actually okay that there's not a lot of users right now, because the Mavericks that are on it right now, yes, they get the upside potential, but they also get the downside risk. We can, of course, talk about the UX and the UI. So the overall user experience of blockchain is quite clunky, but these things will improve. And I'm actually quite happy that it is quite clunky, because as I said, I don't want there to be billions of people on this right now where they could all be exposed to things like this. Education, of course, is going to be a big thing, but like with the internet, it took years for people just to realize, like, oh, why is this useful? Like, I can send letters. Why do I need email? So that kind of stuff will become more apparent with time. So personally, I almost feel like we're in the perfect place of both user adoption and the growth of applications and security of these technologies.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, so we're going to move into Q&A. I know this is a quick and dirty combo. This is something we've explored if there's interest of doing a series on. Want to still have all of our speakers up, so if we can take down the slide. But Eliza, I think one of the questions that came up, what is your view on income producing actions, play to earn in the crypto, NFTs, or smart contracts gaming space? Do you have anything to say on that?
Just in general, I think at a very fundamental level, I think like when you want to like participate in the global economy, you have to usually have like a bunch of, documentation, or just etc. Like you need, it's very non-accessible for some people. But I think one of the opportunities that decentralized finance has is that anyone can really participate in the global economy, with decentralized finance, because of the opportunities that it offers. And I think that's really cool, because then allowing people to gain income in that way can make just income in general, which is such an important thing, so much more accessible, whether it's, loans to like buy a house or anything of that sort. I think it makes it a lot more accessible, which I think, in my opinion, is really cool, just on a very general level.
Thank you. Ahmed, I know that you're, I don't know if your camera's on, but are you here? There's a lot of us. Ahmed, joining us. I'd love to hear from you on, I know your zone of genius is kind of in the social media space. Can you speak to what changes you see in regards to Web3 and social media, how we're interacting around that?
Hi, Amber. How are you? Nice to be with you guys, joining that nice session. It is really inspiring, especially the talk of Gary, talking about why he's optimistic about the Web3 and what's happening in the world, the meta crisis and things. So yeah, let's take it from this point, because what's happening in the world is very like game changing and eye opening since COVID hits and started. Things started to change all over the businesses. Yeah, many businesses like had shut down, and other businesses trying to jump into the space, and it's still happening. You observe now the great resignation here. It's happening. People are changing, businesses are changing. So at this point, you need to look at the future. What should happen, or what could happen in the future? What's our estimation, our expectation about the future? So Web3 come into mind, and what's happening in cryptocurrencies and Ethereum and DeFi and DAOs is really inspiring and eye-opening. So jumping into the future or trying to invade the Web3 before Web3 come and take over everything could be a smart choice. So that's why we're trying to change what we do from typical social media management or social media marketing exercise into creating NFTs or creating NFT marketplace, or trying to put our purposes into the NFT creators. So we are passionate now about this. We are also optimistic about the NFTs. We can notice that it's a little bit deceptive now. Talking back about the 6Ds of the 6 exponential characteristics that Peter Diamandis mentioned before. So NFTs we see it like deceptive. Some people think that they can make apes pictures or dogs pictures and trying to sell that by millions. This is deceptive. This is not the real thing, but the technology itself is amazing. And we think that if we can prove the digital ownership or the utility ownership or the physical ownership through that nice system of NFTs and blockchain, so we can do a lot. Opportunities are endless there. So this is how we see it, and we are trying to play with that right now and to see how can we push that forward. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, going back to Daniel's Lego example, right? I think Gary, we have about 6 minutes left for Q&A. There's questions coming in through the chat, so I wanted to ask, and maybe Daniel, you may have an opinion on this, but what do you think are the odds of completely gamifying the approach to working by leveraging the tools that are being developed on the blockchain, DAOs, NFTs, and tokens? Do you want to take that, Gary? That's from Vid.
Completely gamifying the approach to working by leveraging. I'll just take the broader question of, or just transmute it to like gamification and Web3 and changing the world. So I think that's actually a huge again, like the purpose of regenerative finance is just to shift incentives where like that, I don't know, like, okay, let me take a step back. A lot of people that are part of the meta crisis, like thinking community, they talk about game A versus game B, and game A is like this zero-sum race to the bottom, extraction, accumulate a bunch of wealth, get a bunch of super yachts. We know that game, right? And I think sometimes the game that we are told to play is so, it's like you ask like a fish, as if you could ask a fish, like, how's the water, right? You don't know what, they wouldn't know what to say. And so we have to, so a different game, yeah, it is kind of, in some ways, in many ways, it's like very challenging to re-engineer the system that is just so embedded in everything that we do. So let me give one example. I talk a lot about jailbreaking young people out of game A, because the university system, why Singularity University is so important, is because the university system is capturing our young people into game A. So you have, you take on all this debt, right? Let's say on a low case, like Duke, if you had to pay for Duke tuition on your own and your parents, like, and you didn't have scholarships, that's like 300, 400K of debt. It was 250K, like when I graduated in 2015. And so what kind of jobs do you need to take on to pay off that debt? Is it stuff that's regenerating the planet, or is it stuff that is, feeding on the status quo, extracting from people during the status quo? I know lots of people that were at McKinsey and at big tech companies, but you're going to take the big tech company job, $250,000, where you get like 100K bonus when you're starting salary, like almost like when you're starting salary these days. Like, are you going to take that to pay off your debt, or are you going to join a Dow, right? That's actually moving the needle and building game B. So we have a lot of work to do to even make apparent that there's another game, and that there is a game that you're currently playing, which is that, and then there's also this wicked problem of parents actually ruining their kids' lives by saying, by doing what they think makes sense, because they've been told you go to college and everything's good, right? That's in the last 30 years, it went from the best thing to do to one of the worst things to do if you're a super talented, impact-oriented creator type person, like an alchemist type young person that has that sort of talent. So like going to a typical university setting is actually the worst thing that you could be doing right now. There's some exceptions, right? If you get a full ride and get amazing mentorship from certain professors, right? There's some exceptions, right? And but like, we have to understand like why systemically the most talented young people are usually not working on creating this new game, building regenerative finance, all these things, because I think maybe step one is just being aware of why game A keeps being reinforced. And this is why I'm focusing on high schoolers, because high schoolers need to be aware of what game they're about to play. If they don't make potentially very challenging decisions, like I have some mentees, multiple mentees of mine have dropped out of UPenn in the last year. And now they're doing amazing stuff. But, and like other schools, right? They're taking, they've convinced their parents that they're taking gap year when they're really actually just taking gap life. Anyways, like, I'm like, a lot of people are just scared to say what I'm saying, because they don't want to be seen as like anti-college, right? But it's tricky. We have to ask these questions, right? If Singularity University is going to be like a transformative sort of institution, we have to be willing to talk about what's uncomfortable, which is that like the conventional wisdom that allowed you to succeed in the default status quo world is often the exact thing that people should not be doing. I'm not going to say that there's one size fits all advice for people, but you have to realize that why the status quo is so entrenched. I think, did Amber drop off on accident?
I think maybe she did, but very inspiring. And as soon as she gets back, we'll go to that. Nikki, I know that there are some other questions in the chat. Do you want to lift one?
Sure. I wrote one that I really like. I ask everybody on our podcast this same one, and that's about what's the monetization strategy and what are some ways to earn a living without working 9 to 5, especially using Web3. Eliza, why don't you start with that one? You just answered that for us in our earlier podcast.
Sorry, I think my Wi-Fi is cutting out. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, basically, how are you monetizing? How do you see income producing behaviors happening in Web3 that takes us out of the 9 to 5 lifestyle?
Sorry, I think you're cutting out.
Okay, how about your DeFi article? Talk about your DeFi article.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
You know what? I think we'll go on. We'll move on, Nikki, because I think Elisa's just having too much trouble.
Okay.
And I know we've got just a number of questions. Go ahead with the next one, or lob it to who you think. Sorry, guys, we're playing Amber right now. Nikki, there you're on mute.
Yes. So, what is your view of income producing actions like play to earn in the crypto, NFT, or smart contracts gaming space? Anybody else want to take that on?
I can. So I'm friends with some of play to earn gets a lot of shit because just like all of Web3, as like it's treated like everything's a Ponzi. In some ways, it kind of is, but there's a lot of really useful experimentation happening. To be honest, or to as like the silver lining, I think people that have the skill set to create fantasy games and also like are somehow be able to create increasingly sustainable gaming ecosystems, which I would say, I don't know if there's a single sustainable play to earn ecosystem yet. Do you know why I'm saying that? Is because I think we need to have some kind of cutoff of saying like, you know, Axie Infinity is like this giant thing that had a lot of huge problems actually recently, but like it was around for like a couple of years and people were like, oh, this is like this is it, right? This is, you know, like a proof that play to earn gaming works. And like, I would say, unless your video game ecosystem has been around for like many years, like you have no right to say that this is like not a Ponzi, right? It might have just been like a 3-year long Ponzi. And I say this as someone that like knows some of the leadership there. Like, I'm just saying, I don't know. They don't know that they've created a sustainable ecosystem. But right, the learnings that are happening by creating sort of like a fantasy game that is not really about planetary regeneration, like these sort of like geniuses that are really great at creating like these game dynamics and like great user experiences and kind of addicting people to things, they need to apply what could sometimes be like considered like dark arts, right, to all things regeneration. And again, I like to talk a lot about potential. There's plenty that needs to happen in order for gaming geniuses to, in some ways, kind of redeem themselves as it relates to the climate crisis and the meta crisis. But like, in the meantime, like, there's a lot of really great human beings that are in the play to earn gaming ecosystem that do really care about the planet. We need to make sure that they are somehow incentivized or convinced to leverage their skill sets to basically make planetary regeneration a game in itself.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gary. Amber's back and she's got a surprise for us.
Yeah.
So let's do the wallet drop.
I had a total internet shutdown and so I just need to do a screen share here. All right, so At the end of this, we are going to be sending out a survey, and if you complete that survey, what you'll get in response is a code. Basically, I took that URL link and I put it here, and you know, it's very, very simple. You're just going to click with claim with a new account that's preceded with 0.5 near. The great thing about near is that you can actually do a human readable address. So su fam dot near, right? Or sorry, dot near. And that's how I reserve my account ID. I'm not going to do it to waste the, well, actually, I'll just go ahead. So then you get a choose your security method. The preferred method is the most secure would be secure passphrase. When I choose this, and this is just gonna be a demo, so if you guys want to hack my 0.5 account, go for it. You can also choose email, which is less secure, or Ledger hardware wallet if you have that and you're already in the crypto space. When you get that secure passcode, it's going to have 12 words here. You're going to want to write these down. Now, it does give you the option to copy them. This is not the ideal way to do it. You want to write these down. When you say continue, it's going to ask you what was word number 6 in this case, right? So I would write in Jewel, that was word number 6. So in me writing Jewel, verify and complete. It should be, hopefully I got the right word there, and my internet's still working. Anywho, so you put the 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, Jewel. Why aren't you working? Probably because, oh, there we go. So your near drop has been claimed. So now I have a wallet. This is my wallet. I can add more to this using MoonPay. I can connect this to an existing wallet that I already have, like a Coinbase or crypto.com. I can export my near from here to one of those wallets, or I can import additional near from there to this space. Within this, you can start to explore staking and some of these other things. We don't have time to get into that, but the idea here is if you don't do this through an airdrop, you have to take a hashed wallet, and then which is just a long string of code, basically numbers and letters, and then you would be and the screen share, and then you would have to create the human readable. So this is actually a gift for everybody. You have 0.5 near so that you've got a wallet set up. All you got to do is fill out that survey so that we know that you were on the call. It's just not feasible for me to airdrop all of that through the chat right now. So please fill that out so I can get you a near wallet, and then reach out to Daniel or I in that form if you have questions. Happy to help navigate, answer anything, and super appreciate everybody being here. Thanks for staying the extra couple of minutes. Sorry for the downtime on the internet. It is Mercury retrograde, if that matters to anybody.
Indeed. Thanks, Amber. And please join me in welcoming and thanking our speakers and moderator. We would like to also thank everybody who participated. We hope you've enjoyed participating in this Web3 learning session. I know there's a lot more, but we've touched the surface. Please also feel free to add pertinent resources that you think would be helpful to this conversation in the chat. If you've yet to do so, please put your name, information, and the like in the connect and feedback form that was posted just a little bit ago. Here at Singularity San Diego chapter, we aim to foster and support transformative innovators and big dreamers to meet the challenges of our time and thereby usher in a better future. And if you're so inspired, you can get involved with Singularity. There's a section in the feedback and connect form that was posted that you can indicate your interest in becoming a member, getting involved with our chapter, joining the Impact Initiative led by Nikki, wave again, volunteer or sponsor future events. Nikki pasted the form, just take a look earlier, and to connect with our chapter and panelists or me, simply fill it out and the chapter leadership will facilitate the connects. We do aim for 100% completion of the form so that we can learn and continue to enhance our programs. Lots of ways to get involved: attend our events, become a member, join the initiative, volunteer, host events, sponsor events, and if you're not on our mailing list, you can get on there by filling out the Connect form. In closing, thank you all again, and until next time, here's to ushering in the world we wish to see. I really appreciate let's make a game B. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.